Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all, wherever in the world you might be joining us from. Hello to everyone and welcome to the Commonwealth 8.7 webinar on women's empowerment through skills development and vocational training. I am Sine Aurora. I'm director of the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative in London, and I'm very pleased to be welcoming you all to this event. The Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative is an international non-governmental organization working for the practical realization of human rights throughout the Commonwealth. We have offices in New Delhi, London, and Accra, and from these offices, our research, advocacy, capacity building, and mobilization efforts have focused on issues relating to access to justice, access to information, media freedoms and freedom of expression, and of course, eradicating contemporary forms of slavery, forced labor, and human trafficking. Back in July 2019, CHRI founded the Commonwealth 8.7 Network as an initiative to mark the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons, and we serve as its secretariat to date. The 8.7 Network is a global member-driven network made up of over 100 frontline civil society organizations that share a common vision to tackle modern slavery and human trafficking. The network, of course, is named after the UN Sustainable Development Goal SDG Target 8.7, which seeks to end modern slavery, including forced labor, human trafficking, and child labor. I am very proud to be part of the management committee of this network, whose members are very active and keen to collectively raise awareness, strengthen skills, share good practice, and of course, advocate for changes to laws and policies to support all victims and survivors of modern slavery and human trafficking. And in line with this commitment, the 8.7 Network organizes and hosts quarterly webinars, such as today's, on various thematic issues that are contemporary and relevant to modern slavery and human trafficking. So, why this webinar and why now? We must remember that globally, women and girls account for 71%, that's more than 7 out of 10, 71% of all victims of modern slavery. Women and girls account for a staggering 99% of victims of forced sexual exploitation, 84% of victims of forced marriage, and 58% of victims of forced labor. And the reality for those women and girls who survive modern slavery is stark. Many face significant barriers economically and socially, including barriers to access to education and employment opportunities, leaving them trapped in cycles of poverty and vulnerability. As we mark International Women's Day this week on March 8th, our 8.7 Network members offered this platform today for dialogue, sharing, and learning on how skills development and vocational training have provided women survivors alternatives and options to livelihood support, leading to their financial independence. Through skills development and vocational training, women are equipped with the tools they need to exercise their agency, rebuild their lives, and contribute meaningfully to their families and their communities. I am very much looking forward to hearing the experiences and the stories of our diverse and very esteemed panel members today. But first, it is my pleasure to introduce the moderator for today's discussion, Dr. Stephen Morse. Stephen is the CEO of Unchained Solutions based in Sydney, Australia, and he brings over 25 years of entrepreneurial leadership in combating modern slavery. He serves as the chair of the 8.7 Network's Communications and Capacity Building Working Group, and also is a member of a number of advisory boards, including the Ethics Committee of the Australasian Supply Chain Institute. So thank you all once again for joining us today, and I give the floor now to Stephen.
Thank you, Snane. A warm welcome to you wherever you're calling in for today. It's a privilege to be moderating today's session and helping. My role is really to introduce the speakers, to let them speak, and then to ask them some questions, not too curly, before opening up the webinar for you to actually ask your own questions of the speakers towards the end. We're just going to start with some housekeeping, just to give you an idea of what you can expect today. As we've mentioned, that the purpose of the webinar is really to share some really good examples of practical skills development and vocational training programs These have been designed for survivors, which have then led to their own financial independence and empowerment. That's very much part of our mandate, is to provide the framework, provide what we can in order to enable others to secure and find their own financial freedom and their own livelihood. So it's really important as we come into today. That's part of what we're looking at and what we're considering. And we just hope and trust that as you hear from the speakers, that you gain a deeper appreciation for this kind of work and ways in which you can get involved as well. Our meeting today will be recorded and will be made available on the Commonwealth 8.7 Network YouTube channel, so you can access that following from today. I can't promise you when that will be available, but it will be made available soon. Our session will go for about an hour and a half. So as Sinead has mentioned, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. That's for you to use. We do ask that you keep yourself on mute throughout the session, and that all questions are therefore directed through the chat box, and you can ask all sorts of questions through there, and we'll monitor those throughout the webinar and then attend to those towards the end. We do ask, though, that if you can, keep your camera on so we can see each other. It's, this is a place in which we want to actually connect human to human, person to person. And so we do want to see your face, even though we do ask that you keep yourself on mute throughout the session so that the speakers aren't interrupted. Just a few other things. Just put your questions in the chat or raise your hand during those Q&A sessions and we'll attend to your questions. And at the end of the session, we would like you to just fill in a short survey. We just really want your feedback in order for us to continue to improve in terms of our delivery of this webinar, but also in terms of the work that we're doing as an international movement. We do ask, though, that you also look up us on social media, the various channels, particularly Twitter, and you'll see there's live tweets on Twitter through that handle. So ask that you like that and share that widely as well. We're also available on other social media handles as well. So we're going to start, though, by hearing from a very special person. We're going to be hearing from a video of a short video of a survivor. And that's really there to set the scene for you to get a really good introductory insight into the work that we're doing to provide the place for women to be empowered. So I will hand over to the team to press play on that. Yeah, I think the audio may be on mute. I don't know if anyone else can hear it, but I certainly can't hear it.
The money to my family. I'm Lucy Wanjiko, a survivor advocate, and I have Kenya. I'm a nail technician, and I'm also a mother of one. It all started in 2019. I was suffering financially, so I embarked on a journey of going to Saudi Arabia. My expectations were very high. I thought that when I go there, I'm going to make money and I'm going to be able to raise my daughter and also to give the money to my family. They used not to pay me every month. They used to wait like 2 months and then they pay me. And there was a time they took me to police station due to asking for my money. And that's when I came across Heart Kenya through a friend who told me he saw it on the platform on Facebook, and that's where he took the number and sent it to me. And he told me, why don't you talk to these people and maybe they could be of help to you. And luckily enough, I was given a case worker, and that's where my journey began. And my caseworker used to follow up on me. So he knew even the time I was coming back to Kenya. So when I came back to Kenya and reached home, they took me in. I was given therapy because I was so traumatized. I didn't know how to start my life. I didn't know how to go about my life. And during that time, they used to ask me, what would I want to do? Would I want to go back to school or do business? So I opted to do a business since I knew some skills for my business as a nail technician. I do nails. I go door to door. I sell beauty products such as earrings, such as perfumes, some creams, some soaps. Yeah, and I do it mobile. I would love to have it somewhere stationary, but for now I do it mobile, and I'm glad it feeds me, and I'm able to pay my bills without struggle.
Great, thank you so much. And we do express our appreciation to Lucy Wanjuki for actually putting that together and being prepared to share her story. And she is a survivor advocate and does a lot of work to support other survivors as well. So I hope and trust that sets the scene for what is to follow in our session today. I'd like to introduce our speakers now. What I'll do is I'll introduce all the speakers. They are coming up on the screen. And I'll just read each of their bios. How the session will work following this is that each speaker will have an opportunity to speak for about 5 minutes, and then I will ask them some questions to help just to broaden out what they've presented. Once we've gone through all the speakers, then we'll open up the floor for others to actually ask their questions, raise their hands, and answer some of those questions that have come through. And those questions can be directed to any of the speakers that we have on our panel today. So let's begin. We've got speaking today, we have Mercy Nijiru. She is a resilient survivor of human trafficking. And she has transformed her personal experience into a force for change. She's now a dedicated survivor advocate and member of Heart Kenya Survivor Advisory Board. In her work with various organizations, Mercy is committed to raising awareness, influencing policies, and supporting fellow survivors. She is passionate about creating a world in which the rights and voices of survivors are respected and heard. The insights Mercy Maguri shares with us today are based on her first-hand knowledge as a successful self-employed business lady who has previously participated in an economic empowerment program for survivors of trafficking. Our next speakers, we have Smarita Sengupta. Smarita sits on the 8.7 Network Management Committee and is a co-founder of CEO of Destiny Reflection, a Kolkata-based social enterprise which rehabilitates survivors of human trafficking through employment, skills, and education. Smarita strives to intersect economic stimulation and the pursuit of recovery for trafficking survivors with proactive community-based prevention efforts. A global leader in the social entrepreneurship sphere, she has been honoured with awards including the 2013 Leader of Impact Award from Global Women's Leadership Network and the 2020 Jijabai Award by WDC Shivaji College. She has been featured in Times Now 2013, Facebook One India, Show Republic TV 2018, and Femina Magazine 2018. Following that, we have Mercy Otiendo. Mercy is Head of Protection and Awareness Against Human Trafficking. That's Heart Kenya, the same as Lucy's organisation. An active 8.7 network member dedicated to fighting human trafficking and empowering survivors. With over 7 years of experience in empowering vulnerable populations, Mercy is deeply committed to human rights, particularly women's rights, and has a keen interest in social justice, safeguarding, and advocacy. Mercy holds a degree in counselling psychology and a master's in gender and development studies. In her current role, she channels her expertise towards providing comprehensive socioeconomic support to trafficking survivors. Mercy's work is characterised by unwavering dedication to making the world more just and equitable. And finally, we have Sally Irwin, with over 14 years of experience working with survivors of modern slavery in Australia and Europe. Sally founded the Freedom Hub in 2014 to work to end slavery in Australia, rehabilitate survivors and victims, and create partnerships in the fight to end global slavery. The Freedom Hub has grown to include a survivors school for victims and an ethical cafe and event venue, of which 100% of profits go towards running the school, as well as ethical business services, equipping the business community to have ethical business practices, policies, and supply chains. In 2019, the Freedom Hub was awarded the Sydney Region New South Wales Business Chambers Award for Social Enterprise. In 2022, Sally received the third sector award for social entrepreneur, for the year as well. So we welcome all the speakers and we thank them for their time with us today. So as I mentioned, each speaker will then have 5 minutes to present, and then we're going to follow that up with some questions as well. So I'm going to invite Mercy Otiendo to come and present. Thank you, Mercy.
Thank you. So I'll be presenting my presentation basically looks at what HAT is doing in terms of empowering women economically. So HAT is an organization, is a non-governmental organization that is based in Nairobi, established in the year 2010, dedicated to fighting human trafficking. Our vision is a society free from trafficking in persons, and our mission is to collaboratively create a trafficking-free environment through holistic care, enabling victims' transformation, partnering with survivors, and developing community resilience. Our values are victim-centered, commitment, partnership and collaboration, integrity, and care. So then HAT works through the UN 4 Ps, looking at prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnerships. So since 2020 to date, HAT has been able to support 329 survivors of human trafficking to economically empower them. And therefore, we are here to showcase our women's empowerment approach through developing, through skills development and vocational skills training, a HAT perspective. And our core goal is looking at women's economic empowerment is not only a matter of fairness, but also looking at justice as also as a strategic imperative for achieving sustainable development as a prosperity for all. So our model looks into ensuring once we receive survivors of human trafficking, we ensure that their immediate needs are met. And this is with the goal of ensuring that we economically empower them and that the economic empowerment then is sustainable. So with immediate needs, we are looking at things like food, rent, clothing, as well as medical care. We also offer them with psychological support, looking at therapy and psychiatric support for those who need it. We also have medical cover, and this looks into once we are able to integrate survivors, we need them to be able to afford medical care for themselves and for their dependents. So then supporting them through the National Health Insurance Fund that they're able to access this service. We also offer support to their dependents because we know if we are not able to support their dependents, then we are leaving out the social component and their social system component. So then being able to support them so that when they start their skills training, then their dependents are also taken care of. And sometimes this looks like supporting their children going to go back to school or even with skills training as well. So basically, we are looking at the 4 things that I've been able to mention prior are the groundworks that we do. After that, we have a training that looks into supporting survivors with them being able to conduct a SWOT analysis, looking at their strengths, their weaknesses, their opportunities and threats, so that they're able to make informed decisions on what options do they have when we are looking at economic empowerment. And then we are able to then implement the economic empowerment initiatives. This would look like business startups or skills development. And once this is done and they are in school, then we are able to conduct a follow-up support with these survivors to ensure that the support that they're getting is really working for them. And if any challenges are there, then we are able to address these challenges. So what are some of the challenges that we've been able to see when we are looking at HAT's economic empowerment approach? One, majority of the survivors opt for business startups, and this is just because they are looking at quick returns and then being able to support their families. And then we also have the personal economic needs and wants. So in as much when you go to skills training, you're not getting money immediately, yet you have your daily needs that you need to take care of. And that's why as HEART, then we are able to meet these needs as long as you're enrolled in skills development. Again, business startups seems to be a comfort zone for majority and not skills training. And then looking at literacy levels, majority of survivors, some are not able to read or write because they are not able to complete school. And sometimes for certification, then we need people to be able to read and write for them to sit for exams for certification, as well as the other challenges looking at inflation. So sometimes you start a business, but then the macro level challenges are too high for the individual to actually make their business run. And so out of this model, what we've been able to see is out of the 329 survivors that we support, we have a success rate of 77.4 success rate for this skills development training. So what recommendations do we have? So have options for survivors of human trafficking. Do not just have them with one option like business, or if it's skills training use, ensuring that they're only in hairdressing. Let them have options and let them be the ones to make that decision. Again, looking at as a career training, just ensure that you train them so that they understand what decisions that they have to make, so that when they're making decisions, they are well informed. Again, looking at encouraging women to explore non-traditional fields. So looking at the male-dominated fields like engineering, looking at things to do with car wash, such things, so that they also have to explore these other areas. And then support survivors with job placements. Once you support them with skills training, it's important that you try and ensure that they get employment opportunities with the skills that they have been able to develop. And then looking at working with government accredited institutions, just looking at, so that you do not end up working with people that will not give certification, or when they're looking for employment, they don't qualify because they worked with people who are not accredited. And thank you. That brings me to the end of my presentation.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Mercy. It seems like you offer a lot of a comprehensive program. I'm curious, just to begin with, what I suppose what makes you proud of the work that you're doing? I suppose what brings joy to you in terms of the work that you're involved in?
Well, I would say looking at the success rate of the work that we do, and looking at when we get survivors within the program, where they are economically, where they are emotionally, and finally after working with them and seeing the success rates of how they are able to integrate back into the community. And you can see the number being at 74.6 success rate, really then that brings us a lot of joy with the work that we do.
Sure. In terms of what I suppose what would make your organization unique in the context in which you're working?
Sorry?
What makes your program unique, do you think, in the context in which you're operating?
Well, I would say what makes us unique is our comprehensive approach to supporting survivors of human trafficking, so that we are looking at when they're joining the program, looking at their immediate needs, as well as really going beyond supporting them with immediate needs and empowering and ensuring that then they become successfully reintegrated, and even seeing them come back into the organization, either as employees, as survivor advocates, as survivor advisory board members, who then get to influence the work that we do. Then we always remain to be survivor informed and survivor inclusive as an organization.
Great. Okay. And just I suppose just finally, what do you see as the future for HEART Kenya? Where would you like to be in the next 5 to 10 years as an organization?
Well, I think for us, we would like to be an organization that is recognized for supporting women when it comes to empowerment and agency, where we are able to enhance women's autonomy and agency, allowing them to make decisions that affect not only their education, career, their families, just promoting women's rights and autonomy.
Perfect. Well, great. Well, thank you. We do look forward to seeing the way in which HEART has an impact, not just in where you are in Kenya, but in the region. I think the work that you're doing is incredible, and we look forward to seeing the way in which it continues to expand and to grow as well. So thank you so much for your excellent presentation.
Thank
I'm going to call on our next speaker, Smarita, to talk about Destiny and the work and the great work that they're doing. Thanks, Smarita.
Hello, good morning and good afternoon, based on wherever you are. And I will quickly jump on the presentation. The first slide is about who we are. So we are a 16-year-old hybrid organization based in Kolkata, having a chapter in San Francisco. Destiny Foundation is a nonprofit, pursues social objectives, and Reflection is a social enterprise, a fashion business providing employment to the survivors of violence and the high-risk ones. Our leadership team consists of global experts from diverse fields and young women with lived-in experience in slavery. Next slide. Yeah, I will be quick here. This is the map of Kolkata, and basically Kolkata has big brothels which houses thousands of young women as sex slaves, and they are trapped into intergenerational prostitution or slavery exploitation. And re-trafficking is very common. Next slide, I will get into the next one. Yeah, so I have a case study. I would love to read that out, and sometimes that connects people well. So I will read about Pahi. Pahi, in her 40s right now, was trafficked from Nepal to India under false promise of job when she was 14-year-old. Destiny met Pahi at the red light area program when she already spent 20 years in the brothel. Initially, she was wary of engaging with strangers outside brothel, and it took her a while to understand the intricacies of trafficking network and her role within it. Her empowerment journey began with Destiny's literacy training program, fulfilling her long-standing desire to learn English alphabets. She became the fastest learner and the first graduate of Destiny's program. She was then appointed as a teacher to teach alphabets to other women in the brothel fighting slavery. She rejoiced her newfound ability to read addresses. The workshops on business and general knowledge built her confidence further. Embarking on entrepreneurship journey, Pahi launched her informal venture, buying and selling of second-hand goods, catering to brothel communities. Gradually, she is finding her footage in public speaking. Also, she is determined to save the next generation from exploitation. And our take from this case study is every milestone is important, and especially the first step is very important. And I would also highlight the business plan, which worked for Pahi, may not work for others. And she chose brothel community as her target market. And I would go to the next slide. I will also take very little time here. This is basically, we are describing the fates of a trafficking victim. What happens? Girls are mostly not welcomed in the family. They're rescued or they escapes, and they face the vulnerable times, which is mostly out after 18. I can move to the next slide then. Yeah. So this is about our vision, mission, disrupting the cycle, one life at a time. So Destiny has adopted a longitudinal model, which helps ensure that survivors receive the support they need at the right time. Every person is different and the support is tailored accordingly. And we have found a few key pillars, which is accommodation, economic empowerment, and long-term community of friends and mentors. And these are the key pillars. I will explain it more in the next slide here. So these are the 3 pillars, as I've mentioned: trusted community, training and employment, safe place to live. And on the right side, I would highlight the cares, the kind of care. So first, we are saying that continuity of care across key life junctions or the transitional points to prevent the return of vulnerability. Because vulnerability returns, that is what we have experienced. And those happens mostly while leaving care home, change of city, job, marriage decision. And then we focus on the most vulnerable ones. And then we try to provide personalized care for each individual, and then alumni network, which works really well. Next, maybe. Yeah, so here I would share another case study. This is, so this is about S. S was trafficked to a notorious red light area at the tender age of 13 while trying to escape an abusive child marriage. Shockingly, her trafficker turned out to be a woman from her village who managed to flee soon after S was rescued. S was found pregnant. She gave birth to a baby at the age of 14 at a care home where Destiny worked. She received required care. However, when S turned 18, she had to leave shelter home and the vulnerability returned once again. Because the trafficker was on move and her whole family was in danger, so she was immediately enrolled in Destiny's Connected program for adult survivors. She regained confidence, gradually processed her trauma, and she made the brave decision to fight for justice against a trafficker, despite having multiple evidences against the trafficker. It took 7 years to prove the trafficker guilty. So our take from this case is that when a fundamental part of survival is missing, then the victims are unable to demand their justice or ask for justice. Justice remains distant matter. So S was supported enough to navigate her risk and also seek justice for herself. We will move to the next slide. Yeah. So this is about reflection. Reflection is the business model. So Reflection is a hybrid social entrepreneurship venture based in India, which follows a double bottom line strategy, which means the business has two missions. So Reflection pursues the primary social mission of the Reflection is generating employment opportunities for young girls who have experienced human trafficking or have faced violence. And second mission is financial objective by conducting market-based activities like designing, manufacturing, selling fashion accessories in order to generate revenue. So if anyone is interested in social enterprise or building this kind of model, they can refer to this research paper called Rise of Hybrid, which is on Reflection's business model, published by Professor Poulami Mitra of IESCG University, Paris. Next slide. Yeah. So this is the enterprise value chain. So we try our best to keep value every step of the enterprise. And the first one is production and employment. So on-job training with stipend and a very special support for the survivors of trafficking who are being employed here. And then eco-friendly product quality, we look into the planet as well. Hygienic workplace and also full professional development, which we care for. And then distribution is business to business all over the world. So we generally look for ethical buyers willing to promote social business and also contribute to the awareness on harmful effect of human trafficking or modern slavery. And procurement also we generally try to procure from the small businesses at the high risk areas like red light area or slums, small business owners, ethical and organic suppliers. Next. Yeah, so these are our products, and I will try to be brief as much as I could. So this sari shopping bag, this provides income to the low-skilled workers in urban and rural area and in the red light area. And then we have natural handmade soaps, provides income to the urban and rural communities at the highest risk of exploitation. And the third one is a fashion and home accessory products, which provides income to the trauma and traffic survivors who mastered this skill. Next. Yeah, so these are more products. We can skip this as well. Yeah, and this is the last and final slide where we have gone back to Pahi and S, what they think. And so let me read out. So Pahi says that I regret that my trafficker never got punished, but now my primary goal is to sustain and grow my business. I also want to build a resilient community where children can evade exploitation unlike me. And S says, I think I would have been cheated once again or had to accept exploited life if I did not have a job or a mentor. I also want my child to live a life without being stigmatized. And on the right side, we have some numbers. Even though we don't believe in high numbers, we just see the quality of work we are able to do. So here we have given some numbers. 50,000 products exported to 12 countries, where the map is below where we have exported, with a strong awareness message, which actually exposes the harmful effect of human trafficking. 1,400 lives touched, those who experience violence and exploitation. 95% beneficiaries were able to avoid exploitation. They have said, we interview them. And this is most important, and last not least, that many of them are opting for more than one career goal. I think this is it. End of my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Marita. It's a great presentation. Really appreciate all that the work that you're doing in a very difficult field. I'm just wondering, I've got just two questions, and just to go a little bit deeper in terms of what you presented. One has to do with the question of justice, which you did mention. How important do you think it is for survivors to actually get justice in terms of their perpetrators being prosecuted effectively? How important is that in terms of their own sense of freedom and dignity and empowerment?
Yeah, this is very important from our lesson, because if you take the first case study, Pahi, she regrets the whole life that the trafficker never got punished. So this is the biggest curse she's carrying on for 20 years.
Mm.
And on the other side, it is extremely hard. You don't have the basic survival, mechanism. A lot of things are missing in your life, and then seeking for justice takes a backseat. So I think that is very, very important. And not I think they also think that.
Sure,
That's the
sure. That's right. And there's, as you identified, that can be a very long journey, 7 years for
Yes.
a perpetrator to then be brought to justice. That's an incredible long time, which then can obviously then, from what you're saying, lengthen the journey in terms of healing. Would that be a good assessment?
Yeah, it's a connected social care which we are mentioning. If anyone is missing from their life, then the line is broken.
Sure. Sure. Okay. Thank you. And just in terms of the model then, in terms of social entrepreneurship, which you articulated some great products there for people to purchase, which is great to see. I'm just wondering, just in terms of how that's structured a little bit more, is it the case that survivors actually contribute to one business, or in which they make products and then the proceeds are then distributed in terms of, say, wages, for example? Or is it the case that women are encouraged to start their own businesses, and therefore they have their own business structures, and the organization supports them with the appropriate business mentoring?
Yes, exactly. So this journey continues. Like, they can choose, they have option. And we help them set up their own business because we do have some experience in it. So they can choose, but that doesn't happen initially when you are too traumatized. Like in the case of S, I don't think she was in a stage with being a child mother to start a business. So she can choose the social enterprise model, and they
Yep.
are a part of the profit sharing. And generally, it is now working full time. It's a
Sure.
small, because we are very much committed to producing high quality. So it is full time, and some they are part time. Some they work from the village. That's part time.
Sure. So obviously, yes. So it's a bespoke. It's really a bespoke journey. So it's all based on the survivor's needs and where they're starting from, and really what they're aspiring to, and perhaps that as in most cases in life, the journeys take different course over time. So as capacity builds, confidence grows, then maybe there is the opportunity then to do something different from what you might be introduced to in the first place. So great.
Exactly. And we have seen that most of them, they want to be an advocate to fight human trafficking.
Sure. And how does that work practically in terms of advocacy? Would you say, how
Yeah.
do they function in that way?
Yeah, it is critical because we give them enough time. There's no force that they have to come in public and talk about themselves. Like you see the time it takes, 7 years, 20 years for one. So it is very gradually, we invite them in small location within the organization. And then we show videos, etc., from abroad, outside, some model survivors who are we already have some models who have crossed that path and have spoken in front of 500 people or 300 people like that. So one model, one instance helps other to break that shackle.
Perfect. That's great. Well, look, I think there's some more questions there in the Q&A, but we'll come to them at the end, and so that we can get through all our presenters have the same opportunity. But thank you so much, Marita, for sharing and what you're doing there in Kolkata in India. So we've gone from Kenya to India. Now we're going to turn our attention to Australia. And we have Sally here from the Freedom Hub, who's going to share the work that is happening here in Australia. Thanks, Sally.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It's great to have so many people from across the world come and listen to this webinar. The Freedom Hub really exists. We have three parts to our mission. The first is to end slavery in Australia, because I just can't deal with the fact that it's happening in my country. And that really was one of the driving forces behind the whole organisation to begin with. We mainly work on that through local community advocacy in schools and local areas, both in all our cities across Australia, but also in regional areas. And we do run 5 social enterprises to help fund the work of ending slavery in Australia and helping survivors recover. The second part of our mission is exactly that, helping survivors recover, rebuild, and live successful, independent lives. And we do that through a survivor school, which is what I'm really going to mainly talk about tonight. And that's for people who have experienced modern slavery, but within Australian borders. And the third part of our mission is to partner to end global slavery. Hence, I'm on the management committee with 8.7 Network, but we also partner with businesses to help them with their response to slavery in their business practices. So I just wanted to quickly talk about the benefits of women being educated. According to UNESCO, education shows an increase in women's chances of employment, and their primary education, there is 1.5 times more likely for them to find jobs than those without education. And the World Bank say that having female education helps bolster their decision-making capabilities, it helps them improve the family health, and it improves economic growth. So there's a lot of really good reasons why. And I actually put together a little bit of a word map that will show you, which is the next slide, I think, the many, many benefits as to why we should be invested in seeing women across the world in education. It's really important. I'll just quickly, because I don't have a lot of time, just mention that financial independence is key. Having jobs, it helps them support their friends, their family, and support themselves. And it helps them have a future where they don't see themselves having to rely on others. Personal growth and development is also really important in this for helping them have a stronger sense of value and security, and they learn technical skills and improved communication skills and problem-solving skills, all with increased employment opportunities and education. And the third one I'd like to mention is just social connections. They actually can build a great sense of belonging, network, make friends. So I think we can agree, I'm going to fly through this, that there are a lot of benefits. But I've done the same thing for you just to have a little look at the barriers. And we often overlook these barriers. We often oh, that's not the slide I was expecting. There should be another word map which shows the barriers. Is that it? There it is. The barriers to women being educated. And look, every country has many different barriers, right through to girls menstruating once a month. In some countries, they can't even get to school. But poverty, health issues, there's a whole lot of things there, and every country has different ones. But what I wanted to focus tonight on was the traditional why women with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which most of our survivors have, why they find it difficult to go through traditional education. It's very tempting, particularly in our Western world anyway, to sort of look at a woman and think, well, why can't they just go to TAFE? Why can't we just give them money to go to English classes? Why can't they? And so I think this is really how the thinking and the processes behind how we developed our school. So we've found that most traditional education, not all, but most, is quite ineffective for people with complex trauma. There are a number of factors that can prevent women with complex post-traumatic stress disorder from learning in a traditional education, and I think that's the slide that popped up a few minutes ago. Their past trauma can actually have quite an effect on the cognitive functions and memory recall, and being in a classroom where everybody's traveling at a pace in a country that they've often not grown up in, can very quickly slow the pace of their learning, and they will fall behind. This just adds to their shame, to feeling of being different, adds to guilt and things that they've got rhetoric going on in their mind. They've often, even in some of these places, we've seen women get judged or bullied and discriminated against. The second thing I'd like to point out with traditional education systems is that they often have very rigid structures and timetables, and there's expectations around that. And this can be extremely challenging for somebody who has been through a complex trauma situation. For them, they may have a whole night of triggers or bad dreams and nightmares. They can end up very extremely tired they could even miss the bus or be running late to get to class. And as a result, sometimes it's very difficult to troubleshoot. Well, what bus do I get now? How do I get there now? What am I going to be in trouble when I get there? So there's a whole lot around the rigid side of the structures of traditional education. And then the third one that I really wanted to point out, there's lots, but I just wanted to pick on 3 of them because these are 3 that I believe we've addressed well. The third big challenge is that they are living with a constant sense of threat. They're on full alert. And you can imagine if you've ever been in a car accident or you've been in a situation where your adrenaline's going and there's fear and anxiety and you're heightened. This is what they're living with day in, day out. And that feeling of anxiousness and fear can be really distracting because you're second guessing and thinking the whole time. And often that distraction can make you feel unwilling to want to learn or to do extra work. It can be tiring, it can be depressing. There's a whole lot around this constant sense of threat that they have. Safety is vital for people that have been through these situations like modern slavery. So there's many, many barriers that can prevent traditional education working. But since we established the Freedom Hub in 2014, we've had 94% of our survey of our survivors in our survivor schools study, find work, and are now living independently and in successful lives. And we just love seeing them thrive, and we enjoy seeing the friendships that they've built and the peer support and relationships. So what I wanted to do was really go through our program and our curriculum and what we do and how we bespoke it for each survivor and how we help them get to the point where they can live independent and successful lives. So this is quite a lot of information I'm assuming you'll get, and I'm not going to read it all because it's just too much, but I really wanted to just go through the sort of basic 5 pillars that we've developed. And it's not an actual lined journey that they go on. Some people, if they've got great English and they were, a lawyer in their home country, they may move straight into what we call as our Thrive pillar with elements of onboarding and rebuild. But generally most arrive and they tend to be the survivors that have managed to escape their situation. We usually find that the first 2 pillars are essential to see success in the Thrive and the Success pillar. So let me just quickly explain it. Onboarding is basically all the trauma-informed methodology in helping a survivor feel that they have reached a safe place, that they can be trusted, that they can trust us, that they don't need to go to criminal justice straight away or face police. They don't need to see the perpetrator immediately. We have a very long checklist to make sure that we've covered everything, that we've got their wellness, their safety plan. But the one other thing I want to point out in this pillar is that we really get them to a point where we're getting them, which is why we call the Freedom Hub. We focus on their future, because everybody else, the police, the psychologists, the lawyers, everyone's talking about them as a person, as if they've been like their whole personality is around what happened to them. So we really want to develop a success plan with them and help them think about why they came to our country or what they want in their future. It's all about their future freedom. So that's our onboarding pillar, and it really helps the survivors feel future focused. They have hope that there's a way out of this situation and there's a way forward for them to live successful lives. They feel understood and they feel safe. That's our priority in our first pillar. The rebuild pillar is just helping them, depending on where they're at, either integrate, they might need more English, or they may need to learn about their local community. Like one of the courses we have is My Community. We teach them where the library is, where they can get money and Centrelink and all the help that we can provide from our government. But we do lots of socialization and outings in here where they develop peer support, and they realize they're not the only ones in that situation. It's really helping them recover from what they've been through. It's added safety, and it really helps them with learning ways and tools to manage their trauma and triggers. And when they are then ready to say, actually, you know what, I wouldn't mind looking for work, that's when we move them into the Thrive pillar. Now, of course, they're still going on outings and they're still part of it if they're in the Thrive pillar, but it's more about getting them ready for a work program. And that's where we start to do work ready and helping them learn how to budget money and do study skills and all that. So the Thrive program is what we're quite well known for and tend to get funded most for. But we really believe that the first two pillars are essential for the Thrive pillar. Moving into success is another area that we've really expanded across into 3 or 4 states now, and that is where we have partnered in a relationship model with businesses. And the relationship model is based on the fact that we can help that business in their response to slavery, but they can help us by providing an employment pathway program for our survivors. We will train them in how to manage the survivor. We will have the survivor doing a few weeks work experience program, shadowing somebody in the skill set that they want. We've got something like 67 businesses that partner us in that, right from childcare through nursing, hospitality, lots of different fields. And we have careers days where we teach them all the different fields that they could work in. And so our employment program, unlike most survivor schools around, or most survivor models around the world, where the social enterprise is employing them within, we don't. We actually equip them to be able to go out into safe spaces, and we've really screened and managed the work that we do with the employer, and we work together to see that stepping stones of success. And then finally, someone mentioned the alumni. The alumni is great. These are women who have made it through. They're living independently. They still come along to a lot of our outings and socialization, and they form their own peer groups. We've got a mothers group. We've got different groups that they gather together. But that is also fantastic, because when they come to our socialization in that rebuild pillar, it's so fantastic to see a survivor who's recently escaped their situation, who's very fearful and nervous, seeing someone who's come out the other end that is actually now, been through courts, prosecuted the offender, or they've decided not to, but they actually see that there's hope for their future because there's some other people that have been through it. So that is the world's fastest summary of the Freedom Hub. I'm sure there's questions.
Thanks, Sally. Well, yes, you're probably right. Thank you so much for your excellent presentation and what you're doing there and in the Freedom Hub throughout Australia. I suppose just 2 questions. One has to do with, what kind of skills are required from those who are actually involved in coming alongside survivors, and what kind of, what is the profile, I suppose, of a mentor or educator in that space? What are the kind of things that are you looking for people in terms of the work they're doing with survivors?
Well, every survivor has a bespoke success plan, and I've had, someone with pidgin English from Papua New Guinea wanting to be an astronaut. Like, that's the dreams can be quite extreme. But what, generally speaking, is that there is an area that they want to go into. So we will look for people who have got skills in that area. And actually we find it's It's easier to teach someone trauma and how to manage trauma, and we always have a buddy system as well, so there's never one person alone mentoring somebody, but we make sure that we try and find people with the skills that they've already got, and then we train them in how to do trauma-informed principles, and so they don't have to have trauma skills. We've found that if we employ people that have come out of the social work sort of area with lots of trauma-informed practical skills, then they're trying to learn how to teach maths, or they're trying to learn how to teach computers. So we find it better to find people who have got teaching skills and empathy that comes with that, particularly people who have come out of educating disabled people, or people with neurological issues or whatever. Though people who have been teachers have got, we think, the best skills. But we've got people who've got almost none, and we train them, but we train them by them budding another more experienced mentor first.
Sure, great. Okay, so so better to be more vocational, and we can then train you in trauma-informed principles as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I mean, the Freedom Hub is part of a social enterprise, or a series of enterprises you mentioned. So how is that what funds the school? Like, how does that relationship work?
Yeah, so we've got 5 social enterprises. 3 of them are very local to Sydney, and they're in hospitality. So during COVID, we've sort of had to pivot that quite a bit. So we've got 2 that are national, and we're working on building that in each major city. What we do is we give 100% of our profits, help the survivors in the local schools. So say in Brisbane, whatever businesses we've partnered with there, that we may help them with their supply chain or with their response to slavery as a company, they will also open up employment partnerships for us, but they will help sponsor and pay for some of the survivors to go through Survive and Success and get ready for that role. And every business is different. The small businesses often want to be are better at providing skills than actual funding a survivor through the pathway. But the bigger ones are happy to pay for them to actually get through a pathway. And if it's a highly skilled, say it's a barista, there's plenty of companies that will pay for them to go to barista school and stuff. But we never ever place somebody into a business until we really believe, and we've got a whole employment tick box section that we make sure that they're employment ready first, because we would never want that. If they fall over, then it's going to add to their shame and guilt, and the employers aren't going to employ more. So we have to really work at making sure that we've selected the right businesses and the right survivors for each role. I don't even know if I answered that really, other than 100%.
That's okay. Well, basically, I think the summary is that there are a lot of stakeholders involved.
Yes.
So stakeholders, people involved in making the whole operations work. And so that does require, having a hand on the field to make sure everything's running and operating in a way that's...
They're all highly screened and watched, and everybody's set up for success. Yeah. Exactly.
Great. Thank you so much, Sally. That's great. Just mindful, we do need to move on to our final speaker. We're going from Australia back to Kenya, and we're going to hear from another Mercy Nahiro, who's going to share of her own story as a survivor. So thank you, Mercy.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, depending to wherever you are. First, I have to acknowledge that the presentations were great. Thank you to everyone that presented, and keep up the good work. And I will jump straight to my presentation. And my understanding to the word economic empowerment, it means that it's the ability to make and act on informed decisions, and that involves the control over and allocation of financial resources. It is important, economic empowerment is important to us because it allows us to be independent. We don't have to stay in toxic relationships because someone is providing. It enables us to make our own decisions. It gives us skills that no one can take away from us. It enables us to feel proud of ourselves. Often trafficking crushed our self-esteem, but once we go through the process of economic empowerment, many of us become proud of ourselves. Down there are my personal success factors, and we will be going through each one of them individually. And I am going to start with the therapy. Therapy was the foundation, laid the foundation for everything that I went through. When my mind is stable and when my emotions are okay, I am able to make choices that benefited me during that time. And even now, I believe that once you are emotionally stable, you can be able to make choices that are good to you, and you're able also to make decisions that will benefit you also in future. So I would recommend to professionals that to offer professional therapy and counseling to survivors of human trafficking. And also I would also encourage survivors to accept therapy and to take it as a first step to their healing process. And the second, I will go to the second one, which is freedom of choice. And I was given the choice on my professional way, and I chose vocational training for beauty and hairdressing. I was enthusiastic to learn what I chose, and I am proud of the skills I learned. I would recommend that to anyone or to any sponsors or any NGO to give participants of economic empowerment programs a choice based on their interest and talents. Then the next one is to cover their basic need. And say that during my training, during the time that I was going through the vocational training, my basic needs were covered. And by that, I mean rent was paid. I had food for myself and my son. I had transport from my home to school. And I also had a medical cover that enabled me to continue with my learning without having to worry where I will get the money to cover all that. So I would recommend that if you are to sponsor or if you have to support any survivor, please make sure that their basic needs are covered during the economic empowerment. And the next one is after the school, I went to attachment for another 3 months as an intern in a beauty and hairdressing salon. I learned how to interact with clients and helped me to build my confidence before I opened my own salon. During this time, I had covered my basic needs. It is also again coming back here. I would say that once you're done with the school and the training, I would encourage everyone that supports survivors that don't just drop them after the school. Please make up a follow-up for them even after they are done with the training. Make sure that they have gone to the attachment, and also make sure that their needs are covered so that they don't have to worry about where they will get money. And in case the internship is unpaid, they are able to continue with the internship without having to worry on how they will cover their basic needs. And the next one is the course in finance and accounting for self-employed business people was life-changing for me. Ever since I know how to run my business professionally and sustainably, I learned accounting, saving, stocking of items, and record keeping. All this enabled me to keep financial discipline until today in every business that I do. It is the foundation for my economic success to provide for myself and my family. Before I even joined the vocation training, I had already got another training that was economic empowerment. And after that training, I was able to start a small business in school, still in school, whereby I was selling thrift clothes, and that enabled me also to get some extra cash. Apart from being supported, I was also able to support myself through that small business. And I would also recommend that you include training on record keeping to survivors of human trafficking, and to every survivor that is undergoing through vocational training. Then I learned about how to manage my business. After I have learned how to write a business plan, I set up one for my own business one for my own business and presented to her. The planning helped me to find the best location for my business, define my target customers, where to get the things I needed, the amount I needed for purchase, and the money I needed to provide for myself and for my child. I would also recommend that you support the startups in their planning for a sustainable and well-defined business. Then the next one is that Heart supported me financially. That is after the school in actually starting my business. I got the items I needed to serve my first customers and the financial support for the first month until my business picked up. This is an important move because it enabled me to be where I am today. Even though the salon is not, the hairdressing course is not my main source of income, it still benefits me up to today. So I would recommend that you offer financial and practical support for the first few weeks for a startup business. And the next one is just recently, Heart gave us an in-depth training that boosts existing businesses, helps us to thrive economically and expand our business and restart those struggling. My recommendation to this is consider in-depth training for existing businesses to help us not to only just make ends meet, but to be able to be stable and thriving. And we also have, as survivors, we are encouraged by Heart to form our own network amongst ourselves so that we can be able to make a difference as we really help each other. In our own WhatsApp groups, we encourage each other and share knowledge. This even helped businesses that are collapsed to start afresh. And my recommendation to that, I would say that you encourage participants of economic empowerment to form networks amongst themselves. And last and not least, I wish to recommend that you include survivors of trafficking in the planning of your economic empowerment programs. Thank you for making sure today that survivors can share their perspectives on this subject. And thanks to everyone that made this possible. Thank you.
Great.
And now
Thank
I'm
you.
ready for the questions.
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you so much. You mentioned there in terms of the success factors that you've named. I wonder if there's any of that really stand out to you as being really important in terms of your own steps towards economic empowerment.
I'd say that each one of them is important, but I would mention that therapy was the foundation for everything that I needed to go through. And also the provision of my basic needs enabled me to undergo through the training without worrying and without, I didn't have any charge throughout the training time. So I would say that all of them are important, but the most important of it all is accepting to go through therapy, because once my mind was okay, I was able to think straight and to make good decisions.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, a clear mind is essential in order to make that kind of progress. I'm out of curiosity. I'm just wondering. You've done a lot of training in terms of that's really gone into the work that you're doing. Some of that training, though, has not really been part of the main source of income that you have. But I'm just wondering, was it still useful to do different types of training, even though it hasn't led to, or so necessary, it's not the thing that you're focusing on in terms of your business?
Yeah, the training that I underwent, the hairdressing course, is still useful to me, even though it is not my main source of income today. It is still useful because I use it. It is a skill. It is skills that I have within me. So I carry the skills everywhere I am, and I am flexible to portray those skills everywhere I will be. I don't have to to carry anything. Like, for example, in my clothes business, I have to have a station. I have to have a specific place where I put my shop. But with hairdressing, I am able to work freely. I can go to a client place. I can be able to work. I can be able to wait until a client calls me. It is still generating some income to me. And it is a skill that no one can take away from me.
That's great. That's really, really important. And yeah, I mean, from my perspective, all education is important. And there's so much that can be gained through simply expanding your knowledge bank and just transferable skills. That's something that you've learned here can then be applied somewhere else. So that's great that you've had all those experiences. That's really fantastic. I just want to thank you everyone for sharing today. It's been a great insight into across the globe in terms of the network and hearing some of the really good practices that are occurring throughout the member organizations of the Commonwealth 8.7 network. At this time, we've got about 15 minutes left, and it's really an opportunity for those who have joined us today to put questions in the Q&A. Some people have already put those questions, but I just wanted to give just a little couple more minutes or so for people to put those questions in. If you have been mulling over a question, haven't really thought about what you want to ask, but now it's coming to you, please, this is your time to put those questions in the Q&A, and we will attend to them in a minute. But I wanted to just share some of the key takeaways that I've some of the main points that I've taken away from our speakers today. I've got about 7 or 8, but one is really around the concept of the survivor-centered discovery of needs. I think that's quite essential, that any program of economic empowerment really starts with the story and the situation of the individual and understanding what their needs are and where they're at. And that really then can lay out what the care plan is and what the vocational skills matrix is going to look like. I think the concept of a trusted community is really essential for the success of people who have gone through various levels of trauma, and that the individual care is certainly there and there's consistency with that care. There needs to be various options for the future, not just one template. I think that's important, that's come out, that what is offered there is not fixed, that there's flexibility built into the structure, so that people have the opportunity to explore different avenues and then maybe revisit and change course, which happens for most people in many contexts as well, certainly my experience. I think having a comprehensive safety plan with the appropriate screening of those who are caring for people coming alongside as mentors and carers, I think, is essential. Education is the essence of really what we've talked about today, and it's really essential for life skills, for socialization, and for vocational skills development and ongoing support, particularly if people are going into their own enterprise, that they'll need ongoing support for that. Long-term support for career development and business development is key, and that survivors are essential for any organisation to consider their voice, for their voice to be at the forefront of the ongoing development of any economic program, that the survivor experience needs to be there as well. So I hope that covers off really a summary of what's been shared today, some really great insights as well. Just going to turn to some of the questions. Let me just have a quick read. Let me just see so I just can actually articulate them well. This is a general question that's been put out there. Is there some evidence on the best skills and training for empowering women and girls, best in the ones providing optimal resilience and psychosocial support? So this is a general question to any of the panelists. If someone wants to answer that, please feel free to do so. The question is there some evidence on best skills and training for empowering women and girls, best in the ones providing optimal resilience and psychosocial support? Who would like to answer? Anyone brave?
Hello, yeah. I think for psychosocial support, we opt for, I hope I have understood the question well. So we have to go to the experts and professionals if I'm providing psychosocial support. And it's a combination of various things like which works for a survivor. I don't know if I'm doing justice to the answer, but this is what I understood. So experts
Yeah.
are very important to have in your panel or able to reach out quickly.
Are you able to point out to any research on that, Smarita, or?
Yeah. So most of the time, I don't think we try to waste time on doing something which we are not an expert. So we are part of several organizations who does excellent research on this kind of thing. And we attend those seminars, we share best practices. So this is how it happens. We reach out to people.
Great. Okay. Anyone else want to contribute to that question? Okay.
Yes,
All right.
I would like to contribute.
Thanks, Mercy.
So just to add on what Marita has said, is also looking into, because we are dealing with people who are traumatized, then it's important when you're working with, for example, the psychologist, you focus on people who have experience in trauma therapy. So looking at the skills, like what techniques are they using to support survivors to heal in their trauma. So just getting specialized psychologists to support the survivors, not just general psychologists to work with survivors. And as well as when you look at the resilience, is also being able to focus on the strengths of the survivor. So just don't always look at the point of where they're lacking, because then the goal of the resilience building is looking into what do they have, how do you support them to have autonomy, and it's through looking into what do they already have so that you support that into making them become resilient.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Mercy. All right, so another question has come in.
Add something.
Sorry, Sally. Yes, please do.
Sorry, I was just going to add that besides using skilled people when we need to for counselling and psychological stuff, over the 10 years, our curriculum has been really honed and developed by our survivors that have been through it. So I think they're the best as far as helping work out what works and what doesn't. We can apply our thinking to a curriculum to begin with, but helping them, the optimal resilience bit is really coming back to us and saying, I'd like to have learnt more here, or I'd like to have tried that there, and helping us, tweak it. We get feedback from every single survivor after every single course and training they've done. So that's the only thing I'd add.
Okay, sure. So optimization really comes through bringing in the survivor perspective and experience and all things. Great. Okay, another question for all panelists. Do you work with systems or governments for rights /service access? Do you work with systems or governments for rights service access?
Yeah, I can answer the first one. Yes, we do partner with the government shelter homes, like I explained in the case study. So to access minor victims of trafficking, mostly they are housed in a government-run home. So we do have to work with the government on that.
Okay, thanks, Marita.
We have a support for trafficked persons program in Australia, so we work with them. They refer to us, and we've got local councils as well that we'll work with government-wise, as particularly in the vulnerable diversity and inclusion space for employment. But we've never been government funded. We've always received our funding just from our own social enterprises.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, and one thing I would add, we also have to work closely with the law enforcement, police.
Okay, great. Okay, so there's different levels of government and law enforcement. There's different interactions with different departments for various needs. All right. There's a question. The final question has to do with trauma-informed training, so different approaches. I was wondering if anyone can provide any suggestions on who can provide professional trainings on trauma-informed approaches, and what approach do you follow the trauma-based approach or the survivor-based approach? How do you choose which approach you want to go with?
I would say for heart, we utilize all. So it's about complementing, using complementing approaches where we'd use the trauma-informed approach, we'd use the survivor-centered approach, as well as the human rights-based approach, just looking at them being able to complement each other. And in terms of offering trainings on trauma-informed approaches, as Heart, we've been able to offer this to other organizations. So I would say we are open to this.
Okay, all right, thanks, Mercy. In terms of, I suppose the question from Miriam, thanks. In terms of training, and you don't have to answer this in the Q&A at the moment, but it would be, I suppose it would be good to know where you are based and located. Perhaps we can then also network and make some recommendations in terms of where you can actually get that training if you want that training in person or facilitated virtually as well. Another question, sorry, just finally, just another question's just come in. This question is for Mercy. How do you pass down your hairdressing knowledge to other survivors? Are you open to training those who can't afford to pay?
Yes, I am able to teach survivors who choose to take hairdressing as their course, as their preference course. I am able to teach them, and not only survivors. I also teach anyone who is interested in doing hairdressing and is unable to raise the school fees or the school tuition. I do offer teaching them at a small fee, and that also enables me to generate income from that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing about that. Perhaps with some of these questions around various levels of support, perhaps we can facilitate following this this webinar how people can be in touch with each other through the various organizations to be done in a safe way. The question before, Miriam's based in Lebanon, and we rescue abused and trafficked migrant domestic workers that come from Africa and Asian countries. So thank you very much, Miriam, for letting us know that. Yeah, we will look into that and see what level of support we can provide you in your context as well. Okay, well, just mindful that we have about 4 minutes to go. It's been a very fruitful, from my perspective at least, a very fruitful and interesting, insightful experience. I really want to extend my appreciation to our panelists today, to Smarita, to the two Mercies, and to Sally as well, and also from Lucy for her survivor story as well at the beginning. Thank you so much to those who have answered and put forward questions. We do hope that yeah, we've answered them successfully. Just a reminder, you just want to thank everyone who's been part of putting this webinar together, particularly on this week of International Women's Day. I want to thank the Secretariat who are working behind the scenes very quietly, without much praise, doing all this work to make this possible. So I want to thank them as well. And thank you so much for joining us today. We do wish you well in your journey, and we want to celebrate women and all that they do to make life happen. We wouldn't have life without them. So thank you so much for all the work that is being done and for all those who have shared with us today.